Hey, George, I have an idea. Let me know,
I
Marie.
should write Star Wars. You're right.
Disney, are you listening? Hire Rob and George. They'll write a way better show instantly. George, your shirt. Do you like those movies?
No, 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 no.
But you're repping it anyway, just cause, yeah. Your hate
Yeah,
repping it, repping it.
it's called irony.
Ah, I love it. From movies to video games, welcome to Marie Plays It All. Today's episode is a review. We're doing a review on The Acolyte, and we have my brother Rob and we have George. It's worlds colliding. It's like not a strong start. Marie Plays It All, worlds colliding, and I love it. I love it so much. And we're going to do a little bit of a review of the first two episodes here. We have some points we want to talk about, some like very generic points, and then some other points that we don't know what they are from each other, but I'm excited to get into it because I feel like we're going to have some similar thoughts and feelings. But first, I wanted to ask you guys what your relationship is with Star Wars. And so people know like our mindset going into this show. I'll start personally. I wasn't going to watch this show. Let's just throw this out here. I wasn't going to watch it. My brother brought it up and he didn't want to really watch it. I don't know if George really felt like watching it. They'll let us know, but I was like, fine, I will do this for the podcast for a review. Maybe it will surprise me. I don't know. But so I grew up on Star Wars. My brother and I both grew up on Star Wars. It was a huge part of our childhood and our lives. And the OG trilogy, unedited OG, like unredid OG trilogy is the best. And I also love Rogue One. Okay. I love Rogue One. I don't really like I don't really like the prequels, okay? I don't really enjoy what they did with the new trilogy. And for as far as the shows go, I have seen The Mandalorian and I actually liked The Mandalorian in general. The last season wasn't the best. Book of Boba Fett, I liked it once The Mandalorian came in. I haven't seen Andor and I haven't seen, I think, a couple of the other shows, but I don't have resentment towards Star Wars as much as other people do. I still keep faith in my heart that I'm going to love something that comes out. The stuff I don't like didn't ruin the old stuff for me. I still love the old stuff. It's untainted in my mind. I keep it secure in a bubble that you can't see, force field, like some sort of Jedi hovering in midair. I haven't drank the poison to off myself yet. So that is my
Spoilers
feeling.
much?
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
They don't know. People wouldn't know if it was a spoiler unless you guys said it. People wouldn't know that. George, how do you feel about Star Wars? Where's your heart at when it comes to Star Wars?
Well, I'm pretty sure I've said on our show before, like my introduction to Star Wars was actually Spaceballs.
Oh, okay,
Spaceballs
cool.
was the first thing I saw as a kid. Like I was probably like 4 years old or whatever, watching Spaceballs. I was born in the 80s, and that was it. But then afterwards, I saw Star Wars, and I thought to myself, what a bad parody of Spaceballs. What is this? But then, of course, like I watched the whole trilogy, and it's like as a child, it changes your world. It changes everything.
Mm.
Like it becomes a part of the pinnacle trifecta of things. You have Star Wars, Transformers, and like Marvel comic books. It's like those are the things that kind of shape you as a child within like your growing up. And I love Star Wars. I actually didn't even mind the prequels when they first came out. Were there some bad things? For sure. Lots of it didn't age well, but it's still Star Wars. Like it still has Lucas behind it. You still feel like there's a cohesive story being told between episode one, two, and three. Then this happened, and it's like Bruno. We don't talk about it pretty much.
Talk about Bruno.
But I hadn't lost faith yet. Like I was still like, all
Mm.
right, that's whatever. We get shows like The Mandalorian. It's like, all right, this is Star Wars. We have the cartoons like the Clone Wars, Rebels, and I haven't watched Bad Batch yet, but like that still feels like Star Wars. We have the comic books, which are just wonderful, expanding Dark Horse comic books, expanding on the world of everything. The video games like The Force Unleashed and like the Empire, not the Empire, what's it called? Like the Old Republic. All these things just build on the lore and enrich it with more great stuff that make you want to live in this world. But then we get more shows that exist now, like Obi-Wan and
Oh
Ahsoka
yeah.
and stuff like that. And you mentioned the Book of Boba Fett. Oh my God. Like it's bad when you have what, 8 episodes and only 3 are good because of one
Yeah.
character from another show. That's
Yeah.
not good storytelling. What are you guys doing? And I wasn't going to watch this either, to be honest. I wasn't going to watch this, but me and Jose have been doing those stay tuned episodes, and I was like, you know what? I gotta start watching more of these shows that we talk about. And so I
Hmm.
was like, I'm gonna watch this, and I'm finally watching Andor. So I'm watching Andor and this show simultaneously, and it's like night and day, honestly.
Oh, okay, okay,
It's
okay, okay.
crazy.
Okay, so George, those are your feelings. Rob? Rob, how do you feel about Star Wars? Before you say anything, if people want to know the full effect, I'll put a little thingy right here to the link to the episode of Robbie's feelings. And but like, oh, this way, I think. An hour long, or maybe 45 minutes long. But tell us quickly. Sum it
Well,
up.
my opinion of Star Wars made you cry in the other video. So, you know, uh, well, the fond parts of Star Wars is developing my relationship with you,
Oh, no,
right?
you do this on purpose just to
We
get me
grew
emotional.
we grew up with Star Wars together. I used to do the silly thing where I would act out what was on the screen, especially with my cousin Andrew. So very young, I saw Star Wars, loved Star Wars. Secretly in my bedroom, I'd try to use the Force, like legit when I was a kid, like maybe it's real. I loved it so much. And I have a distinct memory when I was quite young in 7-Eleven when they used to sell books. And I saw Heir to the Empire. This is like before the internet. So Timothy Zahn's, kicking off the expanded universe, Heir to the Empire. And I thought, Star Wars is growing. I remember the original trilogy. Now there's something new. I stumbled upon it and I got deep into the expanded universe. I read about 30 books. I just loved it. I ate it up and I was really attached to the expanded universe. And also I stumbled upon Dark Horse comics, which are fantastic. Dark Empire. And I thought with the return of Palpatine, it was just so engrossing. I love the art. So Star Wars was a childhood love, big Star Wars nerd. And my dream was when I was an adult, I'd be able to buy all the toys. Like that's the goal. And of course, as we talked about in another video, the video games, I loved X-Wing. I used to get up
Oh
at
yeah.
6 a.m. before high school to play. And I got so excited one time playing X-Wing when I won an award that I stood up in my seat, like I stood up and I saluted my computer monitor. Like I'm like
Yes.
rigid like a board, and I felt like Mon Mothma was giving me like I made like an award. I made Admiral Akbar proud. And I even looked to the side where there was no one, of course, and like Wedge Antilles like nodded to me. I was ridiculous. Like I was so into
Oh,
it.
that's great.
Prequels came out, so excited, went to the prequels and open-minded. And when I saw the fish eat the fish, eat the fish, eat the fish, my friend next to me yells out, "This movie's terrible." And he had a voice like that. And I was like, midichlorians, I don't know, like what is going on? And I left disenchanted. And the prequels didn't do it for me. I try to like them. Like I'll
Mhm,
watch them and I'm like, come on, man, I just really want to like them. But
mhm,
the creator made their choices, and I'll respect that. It's your universe. Let your art flow, even if I think you
mhm,
should change a lot of things. Well, then the sequel trilogy was made. And at first I was kind of down with it. I'm like, okay, let's go. And with Last Jedi, I over intellectualized it to try to trick myself into liking it. I'm like, well, there's subversion and this is intellectual. Like, let's look at the depth here. And then later on, I'm like, you did Luke dirty.
yeah.
Like, I don't care about this sort of like deep switching of the mind and stuff and inner like you don't do that to Luke. People can say, don't watch it then, but you waste time making art, that time you can't get back to replace it with something good. And I can't help this. It's the way I am, is I can't separate out canons. So you're lucky, right? So that you can say, the prequels or the sequel, the OG trilogy is kind of like its own hermetically sealed universe.
Yeah.
I feel like it's been poisoned, especially by the sequel trilogy. Like I put it together, and I love story coherence and logical universes, not like abstract, but universes that make sense. Because when the rules start being broken and the producers start using the universe to say what like things that aren't really part of it, I get pulled right out and
Mhm.
the escapism's gone. So the sequel trilogy did that to me. It didn't make much sense. It didn't cohere with in multiple ways. I was mad at what they did with the characters, and I said no to Star Wars, like the whole thing. Like
Yeah.
I'm done. It was like a what it was like was this is ridiculous, but like a breakup. And like it reminds me of the good old days when I see like what's happening now. So I don't really watch the new shows. I watching and not Andor, Acolyte to talk about it. And
Yeah.
I but with an open mind, I want to really assess what Star Wars is doing right now. And I may have some surprising opinions on it.
Okay.
So we'll see. So there you go.
I want to add uh my connection with Rob right now because what you said, I've almost said exactly a similar thing to Dan and Jose when it comes to sequels that are bad and that can ruin an initial movie. They're like, I just don't think about those. It's like, no, but I know what's going to happen. I know that
Mhm.
down the line, the person I
Yes.
love will no longer be that person anymore because now they've broken a trend. They've broken the line that was created for them. It doesn't make any sense anymore, and I can't watch the original without thinking of what's to come.
Some of us can disassociate new stuff with the old stuff, but really it's just denial. It's just denial. We're forcing it on ourselves because we have to just to keep that shred of our childhood and our joy. But I understand why you can't do it. It's very hard to do. It takes a lot of energy. I respect you guys for just, being like, no, we're broken up. It's over. But okay, so let's get into episode one of The Acolyte. George, I'm asking you because you're more eloquent than me and you don't stumble on your words like I do, but give us a little quick rundown on what happens in the first episode of The Acolyte.
Star Wars: The Acolyte. So we are going back 100 years before the Empire was even created, and we're kind of like then almost the High Republic era, which is a new story that they're kind of going with even in the books and comic books as of the past like 5 years or so. And we're following a girl who is going on a path of vengeance towards a few or four Jedi specifically. And that's what this episode pretty much is wrapping around. We find another girl who is on an opposite path, a little more nonchalant per se, and there's a connection between the two of them that seems very similar. I don't want to say anything yet
Mhm.
because we'll spoil it momentarily. But we're definitely seeing a much cleaner and pristine world of Star Wars right now with the Jedi flourishing and there's schools and Padawans that are just flourishing everywhere. It's a nice peaceful world, pretty much,
So it seems.
with no conflict to see. That is until like
Yet.
within 5 minutes it all goes awry, of course.
Yeah, it's
But that's
got it.
episode one for the most part.
Yeah, totally. Okay, yeah, so then why don't we start with the things that we did like? Um I'll say I'm trying to think about what I liked about episode 1. I was really excited to see Carrie Ann Moss for 3 minutes. I was mostly excited to see her in the show. That's what I liked about it. How about you, George? What did you like about it?
Uh, I'm gonna be reaching here. I'm gonna be honest. There's not much I liked about
Mhm,
this series so far, and I tried. Uh,
mhm,
I like that they're going back in time. I think that's a positive thing. Like far back, like going back
mhm.
centuries. I think it's a really good idea because then there's characters that you're not really touching. We're not messing with the Skywalkers. You're not messing with our Han Solos and all that stuff. It's like brand new characters in a world that we know. I think that's a great idea to do that. I like the little droid that
Oh
she
yeah,
had, a
it's
little
cute.
freaking transformer droid. I thought that was
Yeah,
cool. Like I thought to myself, like if I was a kid, I'd want that. I'd want
yeah,
that thing because it's like a transformer. It can change and do things. I saw something like being compared to like a sonic screwdriver at times, which was like that's cool. I like that, you know. So that's definitely a high point. That's probably it though.
okay,
I think that's everything I liked about the first episode.
that's fair. That's fair. Rob, what did you like about the first episode of The Acolyte? Your
Love
positives.
Pip.
Yeah, Pip's good.
Love Pip. And I actually I liked Osha's relationship with Pip. There was a couple moments it was kind of cute and sweet. She
Mm,
apologizes to Pip. I I like that kind of, easy to care, caring companionship with Pip. So I really like Pip. And when I was watching Pip, I'm like, this is gonna be toys,
Oh
like a
yeah.
nice,
Well,
cool toy to buy.
I think it
So
already
mhm.
yeah.
is. I think I've
Oh
already seen.
yeah?
I think I've already seen stuff online for it.
That part
Oh.
of me is like, do it. Buy Pip. And the other one's like, what about the logic of canon?
Oh, totally spit my water out.
Yeah, yeah. Um, that's the first thing. I actually wrote down Pip. And I like the sets.
Uh,
I don't have a trained eye for this sort of thing, but I just like the sets. I was like, I like the sets. I felt they were pretty cool.
mhm.
And the music was there times when the music I thought was enjoyable and it felt pretty Star Warsy, but
I
original and it
agree.
was
I agree
new.
with
Yeah,
that.
And related to Pip, I liked all the different droids and even the aliens. I thought, well, to us aliens, but the non-human species I thought were pretty interesting. I think it's cool when Star Wars gets a little bit wacky with aliens because it's always been that way. And I consider that just part of how Star Wars is and is unique. There's a kind of playfulness to the various other species around. So those are the things I liked. I can see the potential of characters maybe resonating with me a little bit more, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I want to say I want to piggyback on that thing with Pip too, because there's something I put down in my notes. I forgot to mention that I liked Pip's dialogue in the sense that he was just beep boops.
Mhm.
So like for me, it's not something that I've ever seen as a canon thing or has been talked about, but something I always noticed was that humanoid droids talked. So like C3PO had a regular human voice kind of thing, while R2D2 beep booped.
Mhm.
And so I'm watching Andor right now. Like I said, there's a droid that's in that's a main droid that talks, and I feel like he should be beep booping as opposed to talking.
Oh.
And in this,
Oh.
the little droid is beep booping. I was like, that's what it's supposed to do. That's right. You nailed it. And you talked about the music. The music in this was Star Wars. And Andor, the music is like rock and roll. And I'm just like, what am I watching? What is happening right now? So it's interesting to me like how they're good storytelling in Andor, but there's visuals in this where it's like, oh, Star Wars, there it is. There's Star Wars.
Hmm.
So like that there I will contest that those things are happening in this show. There's notable Star Wars things. There's practical effects, which is nice.
Okay. Well, I guess we just go off on what we didn't like and what really stood out to us. I want to mention one thing that really stood out to me, and I don't know if it's just me, and I don't know why I'm even thinking this way or if it's whatever, but I found the makeup on some of the alien humanoid beings, like the people, like Jedi people, that looked so amateur, kind of I'm dressing up like David Bowie for Halloween type makeup.
It's cosplay. It's cosplay.
Even the woman who's like all green, I was like, this looks like a woman with green makeup all over her face. This doesn't look like this is who you are. The makeup really bugged me. I was like, just kept looking at it. I'm like, her triangles are all off, like they're off center and stuff. And then the next scene, I'm like, but now her triangles are moved to different spots. I was really distracted by the makeup. A lot. That was one thing that really stood out to me. I was like, oh my God. And that's just like an aesthetic thing, not even story wise. I just had to say that because I was like, oh, there was something really, and they say like the sets and everything, but there was something really low budget feeling to me, even though it's not low budget, you're Disney, but there was something kind of low budge about the vibe and like what I was looking at or how it felt. I don't know why it just did to me.
The costumes weren't that great sometimes. This bugs me, but
Yeah.
the Soul's robe didn't have the proper texture I would prefer.
You're right. You're right.
There's a kind of clean crispness that looked cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that those are little things, but to me, this show is a death by a thousand cuts.
Perfectly said.
Yeah. Okay, so Nate, what's something that really stood out to you that you didn't like? Before we get into our little note talking points, I just want to know like what stood out to you. You're like, oh God, George. We'll go with you first.
Uh, I think it's going to be a repeated thing, but it is writing. is
Yeah. Oh yeah.
it's the story structure and dialogue. Like I
Yeah.
just, no matter what visually looked great, I couldn't, it just like, as a note of like my background, I've had over 5 years in publishing. I've had over 10 years in teaching creative writing. So it's like when you have those things and being someone who is in like stage productions and like TV movie stuff in the background, it's like you look at these things, it's like this is common sense. What are you doing? So it's just structurally certain things. Just like so episode one, we immediately find out the that May and Osha are twin sisters. And the way it's found out, it's repetitive. Like you figure it out pretty quickly because when you first see Osha, you see this girl with like dready like hair, but it's super long. There's a scar on her face. Then we see Osha immediately like, oh, there's the killer person. But it's like, oh wait, maybe that's not her because she has shorter hair, no scar. Okay, what's going
Yeah.
on? Are they sisters? Are they she the same person? And like halfway through, she has a vision, and we find out, okay, she has a twin sister. And immediately after that, we have Master Soul tell us the exact same information all over again as if we didn't get it. And I don't like watching something and being explained something as if I didn't understand. Like, don't assume that your audience is stupid. Let us figure things out on our own, especially in the first episode, the first 30 minutes. This could have been a very intriguing idea and thing that could have been stretched out for 3 to 4 episodes. Just the first episode's play out like a mystery. Let it be a mystery. Let us try to figure things out. And it doesn't do that at all. It has no faith in you whatsoever as a viewer.
My first thought when it shows Osha like waking up on the ship, I was like, "Oh, this is a now a flashback." I thought this was her going back, but then the people walk in and they're talking to her about it. I'm like, oh, it's not actually. I guess there is another person or whatever. And but I feel like they could have milked that. They could have milked that whole thing. Like maybe this was
Yeah.
her in the past, and then that was her now. Because I was thinking, oh, we're gonna. My first thing was we're gonna see why this girl hates Carrie Ann Moss so much. We're gonna find out that whole story. We're gonna see her more. We're gonna do this. That we're going in the past, but it didn't say like 10 years ago or anything like that. But I was like almost excited for that, and then it was like, oh, that's not even it. Yeah, it felt really juvenile the way it was written. Even like some of the script stuff was just like, come at me with all you got or something like that. I'm like, really? It was kind of cringe. Like some of the stuff was like kind of cringy, but I know what you're saying. I was like, I thought it was gonna be one thing. Then they're like, oh no, it's this right away. So at the end of the episode, I was like, well, I'm not at all intrigued what's going to happen in the story. It wasn't captivating or impactful to me.
It reminded me like a mid-tier, like a B-tier Dungeons and Dragons adventure
Mm.
or a mediocre quest line in a RPG
Yeah.
because you tend to have, let's go to A, B, C, D, go to each objective in a way that is sort of easy to solve, or like the script is like, okay, have a vision here to get to the next section, or you find this, or you talk to this NPC. He gives you information that you need in a way that's not too interesting, to get to D, to get to this scene, and then we have combat. So it reminded me of like, oh, this would be an okay Star Wars RPG adventure that I used to GM in the past. So same thing, George. It's just the script and dialogue. I'm like, why would you say that? Well, you need to say that to move the script forward. Or
Mm.
why did that happen? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. So that again, death by a thousand cuts, there's all these little things that might work in a RPG actually that doesn't make sense in a narrative that is supposed to immerse you. In a way, it does seem like possibly to attribute motive that the writers think, let's make it kind of, make it for the audience in a way that's sort of easy to follow by the numbers because you're dumb.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it a thriller mystery? Is it Jedi CSI? Or is it more of like an action soap opera?
Mm.
So you can put things together, but how they investigated things was sloppy and didn't really make sense to me. So that's the general impression is sort of a mid-tier dialogue, go to ABC.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into particular scenes. Let's get, we all didn't like it. Okay. We didn't like it. Let's let's feel why we didn't like it. Let's see. Let's see.
You have an assassin assassinate someone in a bar in front of everyone. Are you trying to send a message, or are you going to try to actually pull off your objective of killing 4 Jedi? So fighting the bar is a cool action scene. Let's give the audience some, an action scene with martial arts. But why not wait until they're walking alone in an alley or hide in their ship so you don't have all these witnesses? The bartender sees what happens and tells the Jedi based on a description, they figured it out. So how do you figure this out when you go on a bare description? It's like, oh yeah, I know who that is. It just so happens to be the person I know.
Because there's only one black person in the universe that fits that description.
Well, yeah, I mean that's occurred to me too. Like that's a bit uncomfortable. Like
Right?
that's what you're implying, you know.
They killed a white Jedi. I know who this bitch is.
Oh yeah, like that's bad. Like
My wife
that's
pointed that out to me. And I
no,
was like,
no,
oh
no.
damn, that's right. I was
I
like,
see what you mean. Um, so then you arrest someone you think is a Jedi killer and then put him in prison with robots and not escort them. Like this person should be very dangerous. And then you have people in prison planning a prison escape loudly. Like,
Yeah.
you want to break out of prison? Jedi killer? Somehow we overheard, like, we're going to put a Jedi killer inside this ship. And they're like, oh, cool, there's a Jedi killer coming in here. Like,
how did they
that
find out? How did they find out? Like, did the guards tell them?
people talk loudly in this show. So
Yeah.
people overhear to move the script forward. So, like, that was happening. I'm like, what's going on? And little things too, like when the bartender recognizes Osha, I thought, he should have been kind of afraid. He just walks into the room with her and is like, that's her. She wrecked my bar. And there's little moments where I'm like, you might be intimidated to be like, yeah, that's the person who did it and not stand next to them. I thought Yord is interesting because he's kind of terse and stoic and may not always, get how other people feel when he talks to them. But when he's talking to Osha, it's like, your family is dead. You have emotions. I'm like, chill and figure this out. Like, you're leaping to accuse someone in a universe where you can easily disguise yourself.
Since we're on the assassin, there's something that she does that she's supposed to be menacing. When you're like, if you're the bad guy, you should be striking some kind of fear and elicit some kind of feeling in the viewer so we can understand like what they are bringing to us. Like when you see Darth Maul for the first time, he's the equivalent of a Boba Fett. He doesn't really do much in the movies, but he does enough for us to feel like that guy is badass. I don't want to mess with that guy,
Hmm.
And I never got that from her. What I get is a pose. I get this every time she's on screen to assassinate somebody and then challenges them to a battle, like, attack me. It's like, you know how the Jedi are. You know they're not going to attack you. Why is this your thing? I don't understand it. Like I felt like she to be more imposing. Like if you're a threat, come in there. You're standing up tall. You're straight. Maybe your hands are behind your back. Or maybe your
Hmm.
weapon's already drawn, and like you're showing a presence of like I'm here to inflict pain, and you're the one who's going to receive it. It's like I never got that from her. I just got this like it's a child having a tantrum. That's what it felt
Yeah.
like, which is unfortunate because I think there's potential for what she is trying to pull off. She has a teacher who's expecting these things from her. Show that you've learned something. This doesn't look like someone who's been studying to kill these people for 16 years or so. This is someone who just it's too vengeful and not planned out properly. And we see that as it goes through. Like she's kind of working on a whim here with each person. But just like her presence wasn't there for me, for what she's supposed to be. And
Wasn't
within that
intimidating.
scene at all, at all, and
Mm-mm.
in that scene in the bar, there's a moment where like everyone's cleared out, but the bartender, and they both notice him. Is like, oh, he's still alive, and they both see him, and she notices like, oh wait, if I attack him, the Jedi will save him, and that's my opening. And the Jedi sees like she could see what's gonna happen. She's like, oh damn, she's gonna attack him, but she waits for her to throw the knife to the point where she could stop it down there, and lose her concentration, and then she gets stabbed. And it's like you read the scene so clearly, you would a real Jedi would have just stopped them right there in their tracks. There
Hmm.
wouldn't have been this whole battle of like, oh no, I'm gonna save him, and you no no, would have just been stopped. Also, a Jedi is so if they're a master, they're so in tune with the Force, they would have sensed that thing coming, even if
Yeah.
they were looking away. Like we've seen the Jedi do such amazing things already, even with the new trilogy. A freaking Kylo Ren stops a laser beam with his hand. You know what I mean? I mean, like even the ones we don't like have done cool things with the Force. Why are we pretending like the Force is such a minuscule thing? So
Mm.
like I felt like there's just moments where they don't understand the lore, and just that small scene shows it right there.
Hmm.
There's just a mishandling of it altogether. Never mind the lines that are said. The lines sound too close to like modern day Earth talk. Like there's a line that she says, what's her name? Carrie Ann Moss. I have it here on my phone. She says, "This is not the road you want to go down." And while that could be said in Star Wars, sure, I think a Jedi would say this is not the path you want to go down. It's a small
Mm.
change, it's one word, but like it makes a difference. Like it feels Jedi as
Does,
opposed
you're
to like
right.
as opposed to a dude at the bar down the street. You, you know, there's
Yeah.
just this a different gravitas to how it's handled. And I never felt that from the dialogue where like that's a Jedi. That's how Jedi are. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so far
agree.
there hasn't been any Jedi feeling. Even the Jet. Okay, so she doesn't feel intimidating or anything as whatever she's supposed to be, some sort of like villain Sith in training. I don't know, but she
Yeah.
feels like she's too vulnerable already. Like I feel like Osha can just go in and like blast her away. Like I don't know. I'm not intimidated by her. She doesn't seem like she's confident. And the Jedi all seem kind of. I don't know how to explain it, but the Jedi don't seem Jedi-y enough. They just don't. They just seem kind of bland and faithless and not wise or have the depth or anything so far from what I've seen.
Yeah, I think they're trying to portray the Jedi as having decayed and getting rigid over the peaceful times.
Mm,
That they're overly stoic, stiff, they're really mistrustful of emotions, which you can argue, this is one of the flaws of the Jedi is not knowing how to deal with the passions properly. But I found like they kind of lacked some grace and understanding. And I think you hit it on the head, which is the wisdom. The wisdom seems
Yeah.
drained. If that's the case and they want to portray the Jedi that way, uh, some reason would be interesting or why that's happening that way. So the Jedi feel like they're missing some fundamental components. And if that's true, I'd like to see why early on to kind of set that up. The Force is difficult because sometimes it's OP, and then at times it seems like it doesn't work as well, or they forget their powers. So at first, Jedi Master Idara, I think,
Yeah. Yeah.
was super good at fighting, like just moving around, anticipating all the moves. And then the way she died, I'm like, I don't know. And then the lines too, you're right. There are a couple lines that again, I felt like this is written by you know, a millennial. Yeah, just kind of that kind of
few of those.
informal kind of meme speech.
Okay, can I ask you guys a question? Just like little things that really bugged me. Okay, I'm no scientist, but I just want to ask this: if a
Is
ship
that is it fire? Is it fire related? Is it
ever be ablaze and burning out in space like that on outside on the exterior of a ship? Is that possible without the oxygen?
No.
You see in the Last Jedi big explosions with fire at the Battle of Endor, but those are big explosions. This was a campfire.
Yeah.
It's like pull out some space marshmallows. Like it was a kind of a campfire. And I'm thinking, why don't you like mix it with like some blue plasma and like arcing electricity to kind of give it some
Yeah,
plausibility with the fire? It'd be like
yeah.
even more dangerous. But they needed to have the scene where we have the fire reflect in her visor to think about May and her family.
Why couldn't there have been a
Which
fire
that could have been
inside the
inside.
ship?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you don't get the shot with her standing lonely in
Yeah.
space with the reflect, you know. So I think there's that kind of heavy-handed manipulation.
Ugh. Again, like we're stupid, writing like we're stupid, right? I just want to say a couple more things about this first episode. That whole scene where she's on the ledge and they're going up to her, and I'm like, oh my God. If they call out to her, I'm like, this is the fugitive. Like, this is an exact scene from the fugitive. He's gonna call out her name and say like some sort of line, and she's gonna be like, I didn't do it, or it wasn't me, or something like that. And it was like exactly like the fugitive. And I'm like, why is this? That's the only thing I could think of. That scene was so, I'm like, oh geez, write your own stuff, Disney. I don't know if
Did she
anyone else
mean to
felt.
fall?
No, she tripped. She trips at
Okay.
the end, yeah. But the thing is, she puts herself so close to the edge. Like, if you didn't do anything wrong, why are you running?
Hmm.
Like, you'd rather fall to your death than just go with them? It doesn't make any
Yeah,
Y-
sense.
and it's like, you know, this dude, like, you know, this guy
She
too,
knows
like
all of them pretty much.
I know, like, I don't understand. That whole scene to me was so, oh my God. And then when you see the villain at the end, a draped in black villain with a helmet that changes his voice and a red lightsaber.
Or her
It's just
voice.
like, or her voice. Okay, yeah, I forgot.
No, and then the red lightsaber ignited at the end with like the big bad. I'm like, why'd you ignite your lightsaber?
Because it's badass. That's it.
Yeah. And
That's
that
it.
could be cool to have those
That's it.
BA moments, but I'm just like, he's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, just pull out your sword and just stand there. There's a little bit.
But would it have been cooler if the lightsaber gets ignited and they have a training session and it ends with a training session
Yeah.
where she's
Well,
like,
see, there's,
where there's like, come at me.
yeah, come at me with
Mm.
all of
It's
you,
little
with all
things.
your faults.
It's like
Mhm.
that's what makes it, I think I'm saying that when you see potential, it's like this little thing. If you add this little thing, take out that one little thing, it's like, oh, there you go. It's fixed. You fixed that one moment.
That
Yeah,
would have
maybe the
been,
lightsaber flies at her and she has to kind of stop it or something like that and
Yeah.
ignites. Yeah, it's those little things.
yeah, she could have take her knives and like try. It's like the ding, 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 like trying to get a little knife shot in there. Yeah, you're right, George. That would have been like so much better.
Yeah.
Ugh.
See, an issue that I also had going with this was because you mentioned the Jedi Knight of what's his name? Yord. And I find a lot of people like him, and I find I don't. And it's not his fault. It's just with how they're writing him.
Mm.
And I find like if he's a Jedi Knight, he should be. It's again, it goes back to that. So the gravitas, how they carry themselves. If you're a Jedi Knight, you did a lot of stuff to prove yourself to be in that position, and they make him seem like an idiot through these first two episodes. Like he's
Mhm.
being talked down to or outdone by Padawans. And it's like, why are Padawans outdoing you right now? Like you earned your place. You should have good ideas, or at least when you have an idea and the Padawan has an idea, the master should be like, you have a good point. You have a good point. We're gonna try this out instead, or we're gonna merge the two. Like there should be more of a compromise between the two, as opposed to like he's just shut down. Like everyone just makes him look bad. And it's like that. I kind of felt bad for him, actually. It's like you have
Yeah,
potential to be cool, and they're not letting you be cool. This kind of sucks.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. It
I don't
does
know if
seem
that's
like
I don't
that.
know if it's agenda driven or it's just bad writing. It could be a mix of both, but it's unfortunate that that happens.
Yeah, he didn't seem. No one seems overly confident in this, and everyone's supposed to have like some position of power or be some
Mm.
sort of like intimidating force or like powerful force, and they all seem kind of like, ooh, like there's no confidence there or something like that.
A command. There's no command to
Hmm.
like how they're.
I was talking to someone about like the state of the country and mores and habits. And they actually said this was yesterday. They don't watch the show at all. They said, today is like the age of hesitation.
Mm.
People are very
Mhm.
hesitant to do things, even if you have ambitions or goals. There's kind of a doubt insinuated in a lot of our lives where we kind of hesitate, overly reflect, and get intimidated by confident self-expression. It's kind of
Well, of
neat.
course, because
Yeah.
everything is criticized and you can be canceled like that. So it's like we got to be like, wait, is this okay? Is it all of our confidence is shot because we can't have be sure in ourselves and how we feel because it's all shut down all the time and not allowed to have difference in opinions or our own opinion or any like strong feelings about something because it's always like, well,
Well, I just got to add related to that is, this generation is raised on social media where
Yeah.
everyone's watching you and
Hmm.
you are vulnerable to criticism at every step, whether even it's a like or a snide comment on Twitter or Instagram. It's people are under a microscope in multiple ways, and you kind of turtle up a little bit.
Oh, always. Yeah. And we're seeing it in Star Wars now. Even the Jedi are doing it. Even the Jedi. Social media has gotten to the Jedi. Gosh. Okay, let's
Uh,
move on to episode 2. Let's move on to episode 2.
so now we know that Osha is not the killer and that her twin sister May is actually the one out there going after the Jedi.
Hmm.
So now they know where she's going next. They know that there's four specific Jedi she has to kill, and we get to meet some new characters like her. I want to say he's like her handler almost to some extent. He's like this middle guy between her and the master, who is Manny Jacinto's character, Kamir. Kamir. He's like her her side guy who just gets stuff done. We discover him, and now we're just this new planet, and we're gonna have the sisters finally kind of meet up.
Is there anything you liked about this episode, George?
Uh, I mean that there's I hesitate that there are cute little moments. I do think that the banter between the Kamir and her isn't bad. Like he's not a bad character. I think he's actually a good character actor, honestly. Daphne Keene as Jackie is good. She's definitely a standout character, I think, within the series. But that's probably about it. It's good. It's a consistent thing from the last one. There's certain visual things that are nice. The practical aesthetics and stuff like that. Besides that, there's not much I can really refer to where it's like, yes, that was cool.
Yeah, Jackie might grow on me over time. We'll see. There are a lot of see the characters have these potentials, but the
Yeah.
writing's not mature enough, I think, to let them flourish. Hopefully that happens. With Torben, I liked that he was just floating.
Hmm.
And perhaps it's been 10 years because he's taken a vow of silence and he's in this deep meditative state. I thought that was kind of a neat thing to try. I don't know why he woke up the second time. So the first time maybe he's like kind of it takes a while to wake up from that huge nap. He's just like, hold on. He's like hitting the snooze button. So I wasn't quite sure why that happened or how that happened. Second time, and with the poison, OSHA sniffs it and picks it
When
up.
she, yeah, when
Yeah,
they
yeah,
find it, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, you don't touch what you think might be poison. And touching it, I mean, this is an investigation. You should, run fingerprints. But they think they know who it is, but like every possible angle I think should be covered. But the sniffing it was like what was it in Phantom Menace?
Mm.
Dioxin?
Mm.
Like kind
Hmm.
of kind of sniff the little sniffing the poison, just double check. So that kind of annoyed me. Also, the Jedi have political enemies, and I'm wondering who they are because they want to keep this on the down low. So who are these political enemies? Also, when Soul and May are fighting, and Yord's just checking them out with the binoculars, and it's like Soul's trying to find out, who sent May on this quest. Like, you guys just knock her out immediately. Get in there. Just
Hmm.
watching like that is kind of
Mm.
dangerous. And you surround her later, but like immediately you got to neutralize the situation. Oh, and the apothecary, it's Kamir. It's Kamir.
Yeah.
Well, it reminded me of a side quest. It's like you always go to the potion maker. It's like, here's some gold.
Uh,
Oh, when Soul said, in effect, if you tell us, we'll let you go. I mean, this person is a accessory to murder. And he basically says that this is his job now is to make murder weapons for people, and they're just going to let him go. And the fact that they did helped make it away. I mean, this
Yeah.
is serious business. You're just chatting with him and then you're going to just let him hang out in his death shop.
it's obvious how the Sith came back to bite them in the ass, right?
Yeah. Like everything's so lax. They're like, "I'll let you go. Give us some info." But he was my favorite part. I felt like his acting was the best in the show, and he added some like comedic relief and everything. And I thought he was really good. He was the apothecary guy is my favorite part so far. That was my one pro of the episode. Was that okay? George, tell me what you didn't like about it.
I'll go to the fight at the end because this really kind of bugged me for a bit. They're going back and forth. They have their battle and everything, and she's like, "No, you killed OSHA or whatever." He's like, "No, OSHA's alive. She's still alive." And she's like, she can't get, she kind of believes but doesn't want to believe. And then Jord is like, "No, it's true. She's alive." And you can see there's a hesitance. Logically, what would be the next thing to do here? Oh, not only is she alive, she's actually right over here.
Mm,
She's right here. Just like give it a second. She's listening on comms. Come on out. Show your sister you're alive. Like that would have neutralized the whole situation. If you see that she's pissed off because she thinks you killed her sister, you have visual proof as opposed to just talking about it. And it's
mhm,
like, and I don't know why OSHA didn't come out like, well, I do and I don't. I understand the fact that OSHA has her own feelings towards May, considering May is the reason that their parents are dead. So it's like I can get why maybe there's this animosity towards her sister. Maybe she doesn't want to see her so soon. But at the same time, it's like that your sister pretty much almost got you framed for a murder you didn't do towards people that you kind of liked. So it's like,
mhm.
come on out. Stop this right now. I also want to tag onto your Torben thing. Because I did actually like the meditation and him like just in his own guilt. I thought that was actually really cool.
Mm.
And it didn't make sense that all of a sudden he could just hear her and then just take the poison. Like him taking that poison. And it's just like, why didn't you just kill yourself like so much sooner then? If that's the solution. And it seems so un Jedi. The Jedi and the Force, it's supposed to kind of mimic something Christian Catholic in some sense, you know. And I don't think the Jedi would kill themselves ever. They're not seppuku like kind of people. I think that scene could have been more impactful if we could have seen his perspective of the meditation. Like maybe he's reliving that moment that made him feel guilty. And we're not getting to see all of it, but we get to see just enough to understand why he's there. And maybe like there's some screams in like the background because of whatever fire and torture. And those screams are happening at the same time while she's talking to him. And maybe that breaks through, you know? And then it makes sense why he wakes up.
What do you think about this? That on the outside, it looks like he's deep in meditation, and taking that vow of silence. But on the inside, he's in a screaming prison.
Mm,
Like, I think that's what you're getting at. Like, it's been
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
decade. Like, it's not
mhm,
just that he's even wrestling with it. He has succumbed to hell.
That
mhm.
And
self-torture, his own purgatory. Yeah.
yeah, and he cannot get through and he's exhausted. And finally he has a way out. Like maybe that's, what it was getting at, but to get a sense that the external appearance is that, he's going through this deep healing process, but internally he cannot take it anymore. When he closes his eyes and now he's locked deep in meditation and he's revisiting his hell.
You didn't feel
And
that though.
It's so much. Yeah, we didn't get to see any of that.
You didn't feel any internal
We're
struggle. He just
we're
woke up
giving
and he
him
was like,
that.
"Oh, okay, yeah." It was so quick. It was over so quick. It was just so easy. It was just like take this poison. He was like woke up, okay, just did it. And it's like that was so lackadaisical. Like that was just like
yeah,
lackluster,
Yeah.
boring. Like really, it was that easy, and that was that easy for him. Like yeah, if we saw some sort of internal struggle or some battle he was dealing with, and it was very difficult for him to do that, and like he's realizing like I got to end it all. Like I think we should have felt that a little more impactful. Like we should have felt that more.
What's that? Is it Staples? Staples has like the easy button, right? You
Yeah,
just press like
yeah.
that was easy.
Also, she doesn't really investigate these people very well because she would have known there was a hole in that ceiling. I mean, also there's a hole in the
mhm.
ceiling. Like anyone can just break in at any time. But no, they wanted to throw in the call back to the Jabba the Hutt palace with that thing coming out, like talking and everything like that. And that they needed the other chick to, the other little girl to like somehow distract for some reason why she just didn't do it. I don't know. But then it's like, well, how is she going to escape? Oh, let's put a hole in the ceiling. Well, wouldn't she have known that it was there already if she was like staking out and it was like such a big deal for her to like get this Jedi and he's very important and in silence? Like, wouldn't she know maybe the layout of the building a little bit? How, like, is this her first time here? Like, she's never been to this building at all. She is not staking it out and wondering how am I going to get in here? Like, like there's a hole in the ceiling that anyone can get in and out from. I don't know. That
That's what
whole
we
ceiling
call
thing
a
is,
plot hole.
yeah.
Ah.
Ooh, bit of
I've also noticed that maybe it's only twice, but people walk in on each other. Like he's just
Oh,
standing
we
there
didn't even
convenient.
mention that. Yeah. Yes.
what was the point of that scene where they walk in and that guy has his shirt off
Fan
It
and then
serves
service.
no
she's like,
purpose.
put
Yeah.
put a shirt on. I'm like, who is that scene for?
And that they're actually talking about with him and his new Padawan, Jackie. Like she catches him reminiscing on a memory that I guess he shouldn't have. And she
Yeah.
calls him out on it, like, that connects to feelings, and feelings, lead to the dark side kind of pretty much conversation. But then like I liked his retort back where it's just like,
Hmm.
if we don't learn from the past, then how do we progress forward pretty much? And I thought that was a nice little tit for tat with each other because I can see
Hmm.
Anakin and Obi-Wan having that same conversation. I could see Anakin be like, "You always tell me don't have feelings and forget about my past. How come you get to remember Qui-Gon Jinn? And how come that's cool?" And he'd be like, "Well, I learned from my mentor. I'm not dwelling on the loss of him. I'm learning from the mistakes. You're living too much into the hurt. Don't no, I'm not doing that. That it's kind of mirrors that kind of thing. Granted, we know Soul is probably looking at her in a way where it's just like, damn, I messed up.
Well, that's great because it could imply like a conflict. So on the one hand, you learn from it, but on the other hand, are you saying that as an excuse to dwell on the past? So that raises really interesting question about how we relate to our past, to learn from it, overcome things, and or do we get trapped in it and begin to dwell on it and can't move on? So it's a great retort, and I think it has potentially interesting implications on how he relates to his past.
I will add, I know we haven't really talked, we've loosely talked about the acting, but
Hmm.
Mm,
I haven't liked most of the acting.
Hmm.
And I felt,
hmm
and with this, what really sucks the most is I was most excited for Master Soul, played by what's his name? Lee Jung Jae from Squid Games.
mm.
Because I loved him in Squid Games. And I think he was phenomenal in that show. I think he was miscast in this show. I
Mm.
think maybe the language barrier situations come into play here. Not like his English is bad. It's not bad English, but I just at times his words just feel empty or robotic. Like it's just I'm not
I agree.
feeling his emotion when he talks. Not in the way like he was in other shows, stuff like that.
Totally agree. I wasn't taken with his acting. And he reminded me of Liam Neeson,
Yes.
where you had the same problem where it was a little bit flat and not really, I feel like connecting
Mhm.
with them. I wonder if it's direction, script and direction.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I think it was in for Liam Neeson
Yeah,
and everyone else in the prequels because they're all fairly good actors. I mean, they're all good, but they all were terrible in that. So script and direction can change everything. And script is not good in the show. Is not good.
okay, one point about the clothing. I don't think the Jedi should wear Obi-Wan robes because I think it seems that the Obi-Wan robes were for specifically a desert planet.
Mm.
And then they
Hmm.
became, standard issue uniform in the Phantom Menace. I mean,
Mm.
it looks like what Obi-Wan wears is very specifically tailored to desert climate for a variety of reasons. And then it became sort of the standard. I think the Jedi should, robes are cool,
Yeah.
but not Obi-Wan's desert robes. More variety.
I mean, when you bring
Hmm.
up the prequels, like even by Revenge of the Sith, like Anakin wasn't wearing the same garbs as everyone
Mm,
else. Like there was differentiate for like from him to Mace to Yoda, like they all had decently different. It was all robe and draped over a certain way that looked very almost samurai-esque, but it was
Hmm.
different. It's true. In this one, everyone's wearing like almost the same thing. But yeah, I'm not for the costuming in this. The cost like
No.
compared to Andor, like Andor, clothing feels lived in. clothing looks legit Star Wars. The atmosphere looks like legit, like lived in area. And this, it just feels like I talked about this with Jose. It's like they went to Joann's Fabrics and just,
Yeah,
put some things
it
together and that was
it
it.
did. It looked too clean. It looked too like
Mhm.
this was like right off the rack here, wear this right off the rack. It didn't look authentic or anything like that. It didn't. Everything was too this whole I found this whole show just aesthetic and everything a little too bright and clean and not grit. There's no grit
Yeah.
in this show. And I think I feel like it's very much tailored to the new generation of Star Wars fans. When us like seasoned old folk, we want to see like some grit, we want some darkness, we want some dirt, we want a little bit of, I don't know, something different. But this is just very much like popcorn Star Wars.
You nailed it right there. It feels like it's this modern generation.
Yeah.
If there's something that I loved about Star Wars growing up is that I felt like I was going to a new place, right? A new world. Key point, think of Princess Leia's hair buns.
Yeah.
No one in our world ever had a hairstyle that looked like that before
Mm-mm.
Star Wars. Her
Mhm.
hairstyles were unique to that world. And so were mostly everyone else's. Like Mark Hamill's haircut for that movie was not what he auditioned with. They
Mhm.
tailored their look specifically for that world. And that continued on through the series. Even the prequels, like the little rat tails they had, like that look was specific for that. Not that rat tails didn't exist, but how it was put together, it was for Star Wars. In this,
Yeah.
everyone's hairstyle, I've seen like Jord, I've seen that hairstyle at the guy at the grocery store down the street. It's like
Yeah.
that's a hairstyle that's very now. It's a very modern look. The same thing
Same with
goes,
Jackie.
yeah,
Becky, I'm like, that chick, I think I just saw her like
her makeup.
in the
Honestly, I've
shop the
seen
other
that
day.
makeup. Yeah.
Me too. I'm like, Jackie's just some girl at some local university taking women's studies or something.
Or
Like, you
from
just look
Hot
like.
Topic.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's an issue with the Star Wars. Like it's one thing is writing fan fiction. Okay. I mean, that's how Star Wars Extended Universe started because it was fan fiction. And
Mhm.
Lucas was like, "All right, I like it. Bring it on in." You know? But like visual representation of the insert yourself into this, I don't want to see that. I want to be transported into a world that I can't see outside my window, you know?
Mhm.
I think that's
Mhm.
that's part of what's infecting the the modern Star Wars, and this is a freaking heavy case of it. Everyone is just like someone down the street.
And it pulls you out and it's hard to be
Yeah.
immersed as you're saying.
Mhm.
So yeah, it has a kind of sheen to it with modern like contemporary elements, and you want to kind of peel that back, and especially that kind of sort of more colorful sheen seems to be in conflict with the depth of the psychological point they want to make. I mean,
Mhm.
this is PTSD and trauma and family, but it's kind
Yeah.
of overlaid with kind of modern pop culture.
Feels safe.
Yeah.
Everything feels very safe. It feels very lighthearted, safe, but they're putting in situations and everything that should be dealt with. I think a little more like grit, dark.
Well, yeah.
Like I want
And
I
Yeah.
want to feel it heavier. I don't want to feel so light and airy when I watch this because then I can't get immersed into the depth of the situation, into the scenario. I'm not invested in this because everything else feels so safe and light and fun and clean and pretty and bright, and that's not what the story is. So I can't take the story seriously.
the external should be an expression of the internal.
Yeah. Do you guys have anything else you want to say about the show before we get ready to watch episode 3 in a couple days?
I think we let it all out.
Ugh, you know what? I'm proud of us though. We let it all out very kindly. I think that we were kind because I know that I don't like this show and we could have raged a little bit, but we're all being pretty. We'll see how we feel after episode 3. After episode 3, we'll see how yeah.
Well, we're trying
Yeah.
to be honest,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
genuine, like let's give this a
Sincere.
chance.
Yeah, we're
It's
trying to be honest, trying to
constructive.
be
It's
sincere.
constructive criticism. Like we're not
Mhm.
like just like this is bad and I hate it and that's that. It's like there's logic and reason towards the things that we feel for this show. It's very thought
100%.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Thank you guys for watching this episode and let us know down below what you guys thought about the Acolyte. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? We can get into some constructive, sincere conversations in the comments if you want. All of us can respond. You can find more of our content on our YouTube channel, Not a Strong Start. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Not a Strong Start. You can listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share and comment and all that good stuff. You can follow me on Instagram at Marie Plays It All. George, where can we find you?
At Nicolopolis.
We can't find Robbie anywhere. He's living in the desert with his cloak. And don't even look for him. Okay, you're not going to find him.
He's in the world of solitude.
Yes, he's in the middle of solitude. You will find him in an invisible bubble hovering.
Yeah. In my own screaming hell.
Just bad clips of Star Wars are in your head.
Yeah, rock your fur, man.